Start right. Hey guys, how is everyone? Welcome back to the Tait Talks podcast. I'm your host, Tait Middleton. This is my face once again. This is episode 8. If it's your first time coming on the show, listening, watching the show on YouTube or listening on iTunes or Spotify, something like that. In this podcast I talk to interesting people with very, very interesting jobs and unique experiences. Today I'm speaking to Sam Rosson. He is a psychologist. We're going to talk about addiction, mental health, just generally getting into psychology. Before I begin though, I would like to do a little bit of a disclaimer. As Sam is a psychologist, he works with clients, vulnerable people, all that type of stuff, that I'm just going to reiterate that my comments, my references, my jokes, my general shitty personality is no way related to Sam. If he laughs at one of my shit jokes, it doesn't mean that he probably agrees with it. It's just natural and hilarious. So let's get straight into it. Sam, thank you so much for letting me into your house.
Thanks for having me, Tate.
No, thanks for having me. You're a psychologist. How and why did you get into that?
Yes. So I got into psychology because I was good at it in year 11.
Yep.
And I remember the careers counsellor came over to me and I said, "Hey, can I how do you spell psychologist? I think I'd like to be one of those." And she,
a good start.
and she said to me, "You can't even spell psychologist. How are you going to be one of them?" And I was like, "Okay." So I kind of started off there, and then my interest just built from there into VCE and then into the early years of my study. I just kind of grew to love it.
So you got your into school specifically for psychology?
Yeah. I think it was you had to get a 65, so it was
which is
low.
Ridiculously low.
Yeah.
Like if someone was like, "Yeah, I got 65 as a psychologist," I'd be like, "Oh, cool." Different.
It's high. I think it's high now.
It must be in the 80s.
It's got to be.
Because once it becomes like one of those jobs where money is involved, people want to do it, and then the prestige and stuff like that, I guess, it just seems to naturally be like boom. Like paramedics and shit, I think people believe these days is super hard to get into because pays well, good conditions, good this, good that, good perks. You get to see a lot of dead people, which is obviously horrendous, but take the good with the bad, I guess.
Yeah. It's such a long haul, the course as well. So people are like, "Yeah, I want to be a psychologist."
How long is it?
Great. It's 6 years.
Yeah. So that's including your masters?
Yeah. So you do your undergrad with your honours, which is 4 years, and you do a thesis in your 4th year, so research study.
Yeah.
And then you do a 2-year masters. So I did a masters of clinical psychology. And most people don't know that after you've finished your masters of clinical psychology, you're not a clinical psychologist. You get registered with APRA and become a psychologist. And then you have to do 2 more years of supervision, so roughly weekly to fortnightly sessions with somebody to get endorsed as a clinical psychologist.
What's the difference between a psychologist and a clinical psychologist?
It's a good question.
Thank you.
A lot of people put a lot of value and worth in clinical psychologists. So I'm a clinical psychologist.
Yeah. Do you tell people that? Is that like your go-to? You're like, "I'm a clinical psychologist, not just a fucking psychologist."
Yeah. I usually say clinical psychologist. Although to be honest, I don't think I'm any better or more skilled than lots of my colleagues that are psychologists. I think it's 2 years of supervision, so weekly meetings with somebody to learn doesn't necessarily make you a better therapist, a better clinician.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a elitist thing.
Yeah. That's what we're about here. Tait Talks podcast. I only speak to elitists. Very sure say that.
I was one of the labels.
From the t-shirt.
I wasn't smart enough to get into my doctorate, so I thought I might.
Shit. So you obviously passed. I didn't know if I actually spoke about this in the little disclaimer. We cannot talk about any of Sam's past or current employers or jobs, therefore we're just going to talk about psychology in general because we do not want to stand on anyone's feet or breach any contracts and get anyone into trouble because this podcast makes no money and I'm certainly not going to hey Sam, if he loses his job.
And when this explodes and millions of people get access to it, this is, I don't want to get in trouble and people get a bit sensitive about some of the things we might discuss. So,
that's fair enough. So you said 6 years, you've obviously done your masters. What's the difference between a psychologist and a therapist?
So I can call myself a therapist sometimes, psychologist,
Clinical psychologist,
clinical
therapist,
psychologist,
sex god.
yeah,
Whatever.
all those things. But so you might be a therapist and you might have a social work degree, or you might have a diploma of counselling. Then I'm pretty sure you can call yourself a therapist. I think some people call themselves psychotherapists. I don't know if that's ethical, but I think it's allowed. They certainly can't call themselves psychologists.
Okay.
It's a breach of their ethics.
So, what would be so from my quick understanding of that is a psychologist is a bit higher on it. Like you got to do, as you said, your 4 to 6 years if you got to do masters and stuff like that. Obviously.
Yeah, you do more training. And you know, if you're seeing a psychologist, you know that they've done a lot of training, basically. Yeah. In saying that though, there are so many good social workers and counsellors out there that they might have 20 years experience. They might have gone to the world-class professional development seminars and learnt their stuff. They might blow me out of the water with therapy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just, I suppose with type of therapy and stuff like that, if you are good at it, you will learn a lot of stuff on the go, I assume. You're seeing, chatting to people, getting the fucking links between this and that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, we learn as humans, we learn manualised therapy and remembering different sort of questionnaires and things like that. And then I think I threw the manual out like my first year practicing.
Oh, really?
If you go buy a manual, for example, for cognitive behaviour therapy, anyone can read a book, read a manual and follow it, right?
Yeah.
So if you go by that, I haven't really had much success just doing that. There's a lot more to it, and a lot to learn still. Yeah.
What is a fucking psychiatrist? Wait, no. Psychiatrist?
Yeah, psychiatrists, yeah. So they're medical doctors. They've done a lot more study than me, they're even higher sort of rung up the ladder.
But it's still in the brain?
Yeah.
Still brain stuff?
Yeah, totally. So they have done their medical degree, 6 years or whatever it is, and then I think it's another 5 years. Don't quote me on that, but about 11 years study, and they do 10 6-month placements, including child and adolescent psychiatry placements. And the main difference is that psychiatrists
are rich.
Are mega rich. No, they can prescribe medications.
Okay, so they're the ones who prescribe medication.
Yeah, and GP, even general practitioners will go, I'm a bit concerned.
So they send them to them?
To the psychiatrists, and they prescribe the meds.
Okay, so they are specialty doctors in the brain sickle.
Yeah, they're specialists in the brain. Yeah.
Fuck, I never knew that. I would have just been like, you're all in the same group. One just did a little bit different training and it went a different way. Psychology, psychiatrist, and fucking therapist. But it sounds like, I don't know, diminish therapy at all, or therapist, but it sounds like therapy, psychology, and then...
Yeah, they're just different training tiers. It's kind of like that, except then psychiatry is I couldn't do another, how's my maths, 5 years. I couldn't go and go, hey, I want to do my psychiatry.
It doesn't lead on to that.
No, I'd have to start and do medicine, like a postgraduate medicine or something, and then go on.
So you know some things, but a hell of a lot not.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And a money-saving tip out there for anyone who wants to go to therapy, and my psychiatry friends and colleagues would agree with me. If you're hearing voices or have psychosis and things like that, and you need some medication as part of your treatment, psychiatrists are great. But if you need therapy and it's a longer term thing and you're paying session by session, I would be going with a psychologist.
Okay.
It doesn't
just drumming up more work for yourself.
Yeah, because we're awesome. No, because we're cheaper. Because we're cheaper and relatively similar skill levels in terms of therapy.
Yeah. It's
just we don't know the med side of things and we're not medical doctors.
Okay.
And you'll be paying a lot more for a psychiatrist.
Yeah, I'd assume it sounds like that. They got to make their money back, hence fees and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to say, you just spoke about seeing a psychologist. Our government, Australian government, do they give you a plan? If you're an average Joe, let's say I'm fucking hearing voices in my melon, I go to the GP, will they set up something for me to go see someone? Is it out of pocket? What's the...
Yeah, absolutely they will. And this is good you've mentioned this, Tate, because we don't talk, as guys, we don't talk about this stuff often.
Yeah.
We're not good at it. And as a result, suicide's a leading cause of death for young people in Australia now. I don't know if people...
Is it 18 to 40 or 16 to 40 or something?
I think it's 15 to 40.
Yeah.
Leading cause of death more than anything.
It's pretty high.
Yeah, so super important. So people think to go to the GP and get something called a mental health care plan, they might need to have depression or have a mental illness. It's not the case. Some of the stuff we're going to talk about later, a psychologist can help you with that. If you just go to your GP and you want help sleeping, your mood's a bit low, you've had a relationship breakdown, and your thinking's a little bit off.
Yeah.
You get 10 sessions covered by Medicare if you go to the GP.
Yeah.
Now, asked to be bulk billed, usually some places can bulk bill, other places charge a gap. It might be $26 a session, might be $50, right up to the upper tier stuff. And again, don't assume more. If you're paying more, that you're getting a better service.
Yeah.
A lot of fantastic psychologists bulk bill or charge very little.
Yeah.
So I would recommend, if you have any issues, and we all have issues, right?
So you would highly recommend therapy?
Yeah, I would highly recommend therapy. We do therapy as clinicians all the time.
Yeah.
We see somebody weekly for supervision.
You have to do it?
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah.
We're ethically obligated to do it, and as part of my job.
Funny if you turn around and you're like, therapy doesn't work.
I don't know, it's fantastic. It's good stuff. But yeah, right therapist, right kind of time is important.
So you feel like also, obviously in my life, I've clicked with other people just in general, we've got the same wavelength, they've listened to me, they haven't fucking, you tell them a problem and all of a sudden they're straight away trying to fucking fix you and stuff like that. Is it very much if people can find the right psychologist and they feel comfortable divulging, because talking about some things you just don't want to talk about. And if you're not comfortable...
Well, it takes time, doesn't it? You have to build.
So that's why it's probably 10. That's probably why it's minimum 10 sessions. I guess you've allowed you because you can. Are they an hour or 50 minutes or something?
Usually 50 minutes. Yeah. And I think it should be more than 10 for sure. But it's because I'm a psychologist, highly biased.
Yeah.
You have to allow that relationship to develop, that trust to develop, that therapeutic relationship to open up to somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we, without divulging anything, roughly, or what does, say, the manual or whatever, without trying to get you into trouble, but what would your general... I come in, and to see you, I've been referred from the GP, just haven't been feeling myself, gone through a breakup, whatever. What do you do? Do you first off just have a chat? Is that I just want to get the basis of what's the actual...
Yeah, so first off, no matter what level of mental health you're working in, you have a chat, you get to know people, right?
What's the thing when you lay on the couch?
Yeah.
I
have a couch. We have a couch where it's a weird couch. It's made of plastic that you can wipe down. You wouldn't want to lie on it. It's pretty grubby.
So it's the same one from the casting couch pornos.
Yeah, I believe it might be.
It's not.
Of course
it's
not.
not.
Of course not. But yeah, in private land, where you go to your GP. So I should clarify. I work in public mental health.
Yep.
So we're free. We're paid by the government, and we look after the top kind of 3 to 5% of acuity, so severe mental illness, basically.
I'm glad you've said that word and told me what it was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, acuity.
Yeah.
I know that.
So we work there, and if you need that kind of service, what will happen is your GP will refer you. Usually you come to the attention of somebody like the police, or the ambulance because you'd be suicidal, or you might...
So it's the next...
Yeah.
You're dealing with that tier of very, I don't know, I don't like to say trouble, but...
Yeah. Have you heard of a CAT team, like a crisis and assessment team?
No.
So that's the people that come out to your house and assess you, give you a psychiatric assessment.
So if you were, hypothetically, I was being a bit off, being a bit funny, being very strange, talking about whatever, fucking cameras in my house, whatever, people watching me, and... Let's say I'm living at home, my mum was like, Tate, it's not the same, call someone, and then they would come out and access me the CAT team, is that right? Yeah. We're sort of like the CAT team. We haven't got one in Geelong, which is weird, so that would be kind of a bit what I do. Yeah.
And our, I guess, way we operate is least restrictive. We have to be as least restrictive as possible. We're not going to come kick your door in with police, although police have been involved before and kicked doors in, and we've had to put people on things called assessment orders and they go to hospital, right? Because they need to go.
Paramedics have to do that sometimes.
And
they're part of
paramedics. And it's, if they need to go, they need to go, and it's for their own good. It's a big thing to do it because these people, you've got to remember.
Someone is suicidal,
so really suicidal. We think they're going to kill themselves, or we think they're a risk to other people. Or we think they're psychotic, so they think they're hearing voices, losing touch with reality, paranoid.
So that's what psychotic is, as you without I'm trying to lost touch with reality. You said like hearing voices, you're seeing. Do you see things?
Rarely, but sometimes. Okay. You might be seeing stuff. You might be feeling stuff on your body, like tactile hallucinations. The most common one is auditory, so hearing voices. Not like your own thoughts, but like in your ears, like you can actually hear somebody talking to you, and that could be an early warning sign for psychosis. So I mean, that would be a pretty good indicator. Someone's starting to become psychotic. Also, that ones you can't really see are like disorganised thought. People won't be able to kind of have their thoughts as linear. It might be around in a circle. There might be not much thoughts. They'll sit there trying to get the words, and they won't be able to get the words out. And for that, therapy's great, but that really does require some antipsychotic medication.
So what happens when, obviously you can't administer drugs, so do you go like, it goes up the chain?
Yeah, we might put somebody on an order that says they have to be assessed in 24 hours at a hospital, and a psychiatrist will assess them within 24 hours and say maybe they need to go to the acute ward.
Do most normal hospitals have a psych ward?
Yeah.
Oh. Or is it just public?
No,
Private wouldn't have one.
No, we have private clinics in Geelong.
Like,
private psychiatric clinics, like the Geelong Clinic. I don't know if I can spin that, but I don't work there. And places like that. And then there's our the public acute ward in Geelong. Most people would know it as a Swanson Centre. So you don't want to be there, you don't want to end up there. And our job is to hopefully stop people from going there. So that's the higher end, psychosis and high risk of suicide, and requires a multidisciplinary team to go in there and help them out.
When you work with someone, a client, do you work with like a couple of people? Like, do you bounce off ideas like, well, he's hearing this and blah blah blah? Like, I think it's some fucking medical term, and they're like, actually, no, I believe it's da. Like, have you ever had a case where it's like so many things? You're like, this person has like A, B, C, D, E, F, and you're just like, oh shit,
completely overwhelmed and out of my depth. And wow, all the time.
And you get a more senior person?
Yeah, we get a senior clinician, usually a consultant psychiatrist as well. I mean, any of those assessment orders where we're making somebody go to hospital, you've got to remember, like, this is police coming into somebody's home at times, if they have to, threatening them with tasers and things like that, worst case scenario, and dragging them out and taking them to hospital, and they haven't committed a crime. It's a big deal. So we consult with our team.
Prevention for like hurting themselves or others?
And I've seen untreated psychosis, really bad psychotic episodes, where people, let's do a generic example, people might think, for example, and when I say think, be absolutely convinced of the fact that the government is going to take their organs and is trying to take their organs. And that sounds ridiculous to you and I. The government doesn't want your organs.
Don't mind, they're fucked.
Or mine. Definitely don't want our organs. But there is nothing we could say to somebody like that
to
would
stop them
convince them thinking that. So imagine, what would you do if you thought the government was dead set about to take your organs? You'd do anything. And that makes
it's life or death.
Absolutely.
You don't even know it's actually not.
You might even want to kill yourself first. You might think, geez, I have to kill myself first because they're going to harvest me.
Because I want to make it easier for them to take my organs.
I just don't want to suffer. So it gets really messy and terrifying. And another thing I'd like to clear up too is, there's a link with drugs, like marijuana in particular, in developing psychosis. But there's been a fair few cases I've seen where people are shit out of luck. It's their genes.
So you're predisposed to...
Yeah.
And it unlocks something?
Yeah, you might be born with a gene for developing, making you more prone to psychosis. So we could all go psychotic. We could all have a psychotic episode.
I could be psychotic right now and pretend I'm doing a podcast.
So here's you know you take
Just my room at home.
Actually, yeah, in the ward.
Yeah.
So if we put you under enough, if we made you not sleep for 3 days,
yeah.
didn't give you much food, made you smoke weed for those 3 days, and then a whole lot of horrible stuff happened in your life, you'd probably start hearing things, or you might, and you'd probably lose track of reality. You certainly would struggle to think.
Yeah.
And do that, and that, yeah. So we can all go psychotic, but you can be more prone to it.
Yeah.
Even people who haven't touched drugs in their life, I've seen become extremely unwell, and it's.
Why do people become unwell though?
Oh,
like, is it just
the question?
Yeah, no one knows.
I'm sure some people have an idea, but I'm not sure. I could go, there's too much dopamine being released in certain parts of their brain.
Yeah.
But really, I don't think we really know.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, they're always learning something new about the brain. Fucking every day it seems like, well, it's probably a bit of a stretch, but it seems to be something new that they're like, it turns out fucking whatever. They can't decide what's good and bad for you, for one. Yeah, they're all 1 minute butters, like terrorists to the world, and the next minute it's like, it's alright. Wine's terrible. No, you need it actually every night. Fucking.
There's so much
eat kale.
Yeah. And you're like, well, kale's gonna, kale will prevent you becoming mentally ill, that kind of.
Oh, really?
No, it won't.
Oh, alright. It's like how I was sucked into it. What?
Really? No, but things like that, like there's a whole lot of outlandish claims out there about food, about what is good and what is kind of bad for your mental health.
Is any food, probably going back to, I don't know if we actually address this or if I'm just thinking it, but is there any food that actually is detrimental? Or is it just more like, if your diet's shit, you're feeling sluggish, whatever else, you might drain your mental health, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
Or is it like, just don't eat Kit Kat, you go nuts.
So people link, so I'm not linking this, I've just heard people link sugar and stuff like that to all kinds of things.
People leave that to fucking cancer.
Cancer.
Yeah.
But if we go more broadly, food and appetite is linked to your mood and is linked to mental health in general. There's a saying, food is mood, right?
Okay.
If you
think when people are depressed or sad and they're like, I ate a whole tub of ice cream. Is that a real fucking thing?
Yeah, it's self-soothing. It's some people
to feel good in their taste buds and kind of release something into their brain, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. To feel good. Or to not feel bad, at least.
Yeah.
To do that. But yeah, so if you don't eat, if we didn't eat much at all for a few days because we felt really anxious or depressed.
Yeah, okay.
And
so that's a side effect that people just don't eat because they're depressed.
They might not be just bothered to be able to make a meal or even go out and get something, or they might feel sick because they're anxious. They're not going to have much energy or be able to concentrate, and they're two symptoms of depression. So already you see food's making it a thing, and then you're going to be like, what's the point of even eating? It's not going to help. And it can kind of become that cycle.
Yeah.
The sleep's similar. So if you're in that state and you are either sleeping all day and night, or you are not sleeping very well at all, so you're tired, you're hungry, you're gonna feel like shit, basically, and it's not gonna help your depression.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm not saying make sure you have 3 meals and a good night's sleep and it'll fix everyone's depression.
Yeah. But
that would be a really, really worthwhile start to force yourself, because depression will say there's no point, don't bother, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, you have no motivation, I'm too depressed, I can't. But to go, okay, if I eat, let's just focus on eating 3 meals a day, right? Relatively healthy, it doesn't have to be Gordon Ramsay or whatever.
Yeah.
Just cook something. 3 meals a day, and try and get your sleep back on track, which you can do if you look up sleep hygiene on Google. You can get some fact sheets. We won't go into it now because it'll take a long time. And if you're struggling with it, that's the perfect thing. You can go to your GP and ask for a mental health plan for. Excellent psychologist, like psychological interventions for sleep exist. They can be done in 6-7 sessions.
Okay. Because that is a big one.
Huge.
The older I get, I feel like I become I hate saying this, but a shittier sleeper. Maybe just thoughts racing through your head and this, and not working at the moment, going about it, outrageous times and getting up super late and just being in a shitty cycle. But you do feel like lethargic and stuff. And I do honestly feel better if my routine of going to sleep is a normal person's.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sleep routine. That's the first step on the sleep hygiene thing you'd find.
Yeah.
Is regular sleep and wake times.
Your body's pretty good at getting into the groove.
Yeah, and there's medications you can take. Not so much sleeping pills. I wouldn't be going down that road.
Yeah, it seems like a
away.
slippery slope. Yeah.
But like melatonin and stuff like that, I think can help. I think it's a pretty natural thing. But you need a prescription from your GP.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be overdosing or getting addicted to that. I think. Let's not go. Yeah. No, it's a relatively safe medication.
Yeah.
To help get your melatonin.
Everything can be abused. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Exactly. But it's important to keep in mind. That would be number one advice, first line treatment for depression, or I guess low mood, I should say, would be get your sleep, get your appetite, and the third thing would be exercise.
Okay.
I don't care if it's a walk around the block, especially in the cold, that's fantastic.
Oh.
But if you can do some kind of regular exercise, so surf, personally,
I don't. Okay.
And running is good.
Not again.
Walking.
Watch the car to go to Macca's, but that's
there you go.
Is exercise.
Yeah, but just exercise on movement, right?
Yeah.
If you think of the way I remember it is the growing conditions for depression are the same as the growing conditions for mushrooms. So it's a bit weird, but think about it. Mushrooms sit still in the dark. Yeah, they're not moving. They're sitting still in the dark, and they're fed shit.
Okay.
So don't feed yourself shit food. Stay still and sit in the dark.
Okay. So gamers, that's for you. For you. Stop playing Doom Eternal. Alright? I'm looking at myself in the fucking camera. Alright, I'm just going to quickly turn this off and we'll go on to the next bit. We're back. We were just chatting about the keeping in a good routine for your mental health, eating right, exercise, and sleep was the big ones to keep your mental health faculties in check.
Sounds simple, but it's not.
I mean, that's one of they would be three of the biggest things abused for the human body, for sure.
100%.
Yeah,
yeah.
Without a doubt.
And it sounds easy, and I guess we'd almost call it first line treatment, I guess.
Yeah.
For not moderate to severe depression, but if you're having the early warning signs of low mood, and you're thinking, geez, no motivation, and just lethargic and flat, that would be what I would recommend.
Sure. Well, yeah, so if you're listening to this, so you would recommend that, alright, you got low mood, let's say you're not working because of COVID-19, things are going a bit awry, you're going to bed too late, you're doing stuff, you're not eating healthy, you're starting to see that your mood and your energy levels aren't there, that the basis to start with, that you would say, that you could do at home for yourself before seeking anything, if you were just thinking that maybe I'm not feeling the best, I'm a little bit off, that you could do your sleep, eat well, and a bit of exercise.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if obviously you've got drama still after that, then we would recommend going to the GP, to general practitioner.
GP, straight up, and ask for a mental health care plan.
Would you suggest people calling the helpline? What's that called again?
Lifeline. So have we got Lifeline's number? We'll plug Lifeline.
Sometime we'll
later for sure.
So Lifeline is it a psychologist or a therapist or?
Sure, I think they're trained in mental health. They're trained in, I guess, talking to people about suicide.
Yeah. So is it mainly suicide, or is it just any type of?
Look, if you're feeling depressed, call Lifeline.
Yeah.
If you want somebody to talk to you straight away and you feel like you can't wait for your GP appointment, call that number. Have you got your phone, Tait, or anything here? Because we should plug it now.
Yep.
If you look up Lifeline.
Lifeline Bunk from Australia. Let's give me fucking.
And they can link you into, if you tell them a bit about your problems, they'll know the services and the next steps for you.
Lifeline is 131114. want to talk about it is their slogan.
What is it? 131114.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's Lifeline.
they're great. Call Lifeline if you're having suicidal thoughts or you feel depressed.
Yeah, which is massive. Obviously, I think talking about it obviously is a big deal. You know, if you're letting people know that you're not feeling, verbalising it, that's a big step.
Yeah. So if you're creeping towards more than just lethargy and low mood and low energy, talk to somebody, whether it's a GP, friend, Lifeline, anybody. Get it out.
Because it must help, because they've made I think it's Are You OK, Jay? I believe that. I think that might be international. And I just feel like if you verbalise the thoughts in your head and you say it out loud, that you're like, oh yeah, that I am thinking that. You know what I mean? So I reckon that has a big impact on people. And also, if you tell someone, and then all of a sudden that's out there now, and then you just you see them in a week or whatever it may be, and they're like, how you going? And you're like, oh good, actually I've started to do whatever.
Yeah.
So I think talking about it is a massive...
It's so hard to do.
Yeah, as a dude too.
Yeah.
I suppose the stigma is going away, I feel like.
Yeah, it's slowly being chipped away, which is great. I think it's, again, I'll do my disclaimer about the stats. I'll say I've got nothing in front of me. I've done no research. So the stats are a bit wobbly, but I believe it's 1 in 5 people will experience depression in their life.
What is, we got kind of jumping into it a little bit, but we're on the topic. What is the difference between being sad and being depressed? Because sometimes I've thought to myself, oh, I'm depressed, and then I've spoken to people or seen things on people that are depressed, and I'm like, I'm not depressed. You know what I mean? Compared to other people, I'm like, yeah, you're just feeling a bit down, mate. I think there's a bit of a difference, but maybe there's not, and I'll let you take over.
It's a really good question, and not many people know the difference. And one thing for everyone to consider who's listening to this is our belief that the natural or default human state is happiness and content. Oh, I'm happy, that's normal, right? Being happy and content. All the normal happy people were eaten, man. They were eaten by saber-toothed tigers and whatnot back in the day, right?
Okay.
If me and you were walking along and I'm feeling anxious about the rustling in the trees behind the rock,
so you'll survive because
I'll throw my spear at the rock and run off.
Okay.
You'll go, I'm happy, this is fine, and then the saber-toothed tiger,
the bush is dancing,
will dance, and you won't be able to pass on your genes.
Yeah, okay.
So
if you're happy, you're a fucking psycho.
Yeah. So the natural state of humans is happy, sad, excited, jealous, angry, anxious, euphoric. There's a lot of emotions are normal, is the basic point.
Yeah.
So depression is when sadness gets to a point where it's beyond and more severe than regular sadness. So when I say more severe, it feels really heavy and intense, right? And it lasts a long time. So it lasts more than a couple of days. A major depressive episode, what we call, is like feeling depressed and down for 2 weeks at a time.
Okay.
With that, there'll be other stuff going on, like the appetite changes. You might be eating more or not at all.
Yeah.
Right. You might gain or lose weight. There'll be physical changes. You might have really low energy. Suicidal thoughts are big in that. Feelings of hopelessness or inappropriate guilt about being just a horrible person.
Okay.
That kind of stuff. It's heavy. It's
being a Catholic.
And it lasts longer than 2 weeks and is more severe than normal sadness. I guess that's the main difference.
So it's prolonged, is what I'm picking up.
I guess the take
can be too.
Yeah.
That is a long time to be sad. When you think about it, I've had people die in my life and I haven't even been that for that long. 2 weeks of pure sadness is a long fucking time.
And people can be depressed for months and months, and sometimes years. Usually there will be times in that year where they're above that, but their depression might not let them even remember or consider that. So I've been depressed, exactly like you described, Sam, for 5 years.
Yeah.
Because that's their reality. That's what they think. The depression will be like, yeah, no, you've definitely never been happy, and it'll filter out those happy.
You are a piece of shit.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Stop playing too.
Yeah.
Just on a more of a happier subject.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a psycho and a psychopath and a sociopath?
So it's an interesting one. Everyone asks me that question.
Mate, yeah. Because there's true crime documentaries and stuff coming out of the wazoo these days. Netflix and stuff like that. And it's always an evil genius who is a psychopath. Yeah. So, what the fuck? Like...
So, I worked a bit in the prison system for a few years.
Yep.
And came across numerous psychopaths. We don't diagnose people as psychopaths. We call it antisocial personality disorder.
Is that because it's got to be PC?
Oh, no. That's
I mean? Because if someone's like, you're a fucking psychopath, it is a insult. It is, it's not the nicest.
True. I guess it's more accurate.
Okay,
antisocial personality disorder, and it's a spectrum. So we can all be.
So it's a spectrum of psychopathy.
Yeah, we can all be a little bit. We can all be a little bit psychopathic sometimes.
So we've all got it in us.
Yeah,
to a certain degree.
To some extent, we are all selfish, grandiose, people that love ourselves, and can be impulsive, things like that. But that doesn't mean you have antisocial personality disorder or a psychopath. So the psychopaths are the ones up the very severe end of the antisocial personality.
Do you know what the percentage of a psychopath is?
In general, like the...
like 1 in every 1,000.
I looked this up actually, it's 1%.
Okay.
So 1% meet criteria for, I guess, severe antisocial personality disorder or psychopaths.
Yeah.
A guy called Hare wrote a book about psychopaths, and I guess that's the best. I think it's called, might be called Without Conscience. Possibly read it years ago. And it's a really small book that just summarises what psychopaths are. So we'll quickly go over from the top of my head, and I'm sure I'll miss stuff, what psychopaths are.
Okay.
So, lack of empathy is the main thing.
Check.
Are you sticking them up on this?
Just allowed to.
It's alright. So, lack of empathy, they don't really give a shit about people or have the capacity to feel another person's experience.
Yeah, and can that be like to a certain degree like when people are like crazily blunt? You know what I mean? People are like, oh fuck, you got fat. Like and the first thing they say to you in front of everyone, is that like a lack of empathy or is that just a dick?
It could be a lack of empathy, but also maybe impulse control.
Okay.
So they can be quite impulsive as well.
Are psychopaths impulsive?
So they fluctuate. They can be very cold and calculating.
Yeah.
But
the good ones anyway.
Yeah, the good ones. So what else are they? They're grandiose.
So love themselves. No check.
Superficially charming.
Definitely not that.
So that's why they kind of reel in their victims. The classic story is the psychopathic guy with the girl who starts to get to know him and then realises she's trash. He might cut off all the family members and just slowly isolate her and then just start being really angry, explosive. But usually just manipulative, gaslighting, that kind of stuff. What else? There's a few other things that I can't remember off the top of my head that make up the psychopath kind of, diagnosis.
Yeah. That's only 1%.
Yeah.
To quickly jump into that before we go into sociopaths, what percentage, or you probably wouldn't know the percentage in that one, but how many people can be a psychopath but just live a normal-ish life or normal life and they're not fucking, Lex Luthor, fucking...
I think a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. If you think 1% of the population, roughly, are psychopaths, 1% of the population are not murderers. So, the CEOs or the sort of upper middle management, they need to cut throat, you fight people. What about my family, They're
kind of fuck about your family.
They also have, just coming to me now, like kind of, I guess, deadened or lessened emotional experience.
Okay.
So they do feel things. Some people say they don't feel, but it's less intense. So they might feel fear, but not so much terror.
So you were saying off air, because we're legit here, that a psychopath, if you put a gun to their head, and then you're like, "What was that like?" They'll be like, "I was scared," but their normal response should be,
"I'm terrified."
Yeah.
So if we had a gun to our head it would be terrifying.
Yeah.
We would have
Shaken.
a full physical
Pissing.
response. Our hearts would piss ourselves, maybe, and our hearts would be going, we'd be freaking out, we're going to die.
Yeah.
A psychopath would be quite scared.
Yeah, just like, oh no.
It's quite scary. A good psychopath, I've met some good ones and some bad ones. When I say good and bad, I mean the good ones I didn't know if they were psychopaths until much later.
Yeah.
Like them.
You are charming. When you're out of here, we'll hang out.
You really got a rough sentence for those murders. That kind of thing.
You couldn't have done that.
No.
But that's what they're good at, though, isn't it? Like,
Manipulate. They're really manipulative.
Yeah.
And they are good at it. Some of them aren't. Some of them, for some reason, miss the mark. So you're like, you're so obviously trying to manipulate me. You're an obvious psychopath.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Maybe you should do that for me. What?
I don't know.
I don't think I can bring
It's a really
kitchen
nice
up
shirt.
again.
Yeah, complimenting you and stuff.
Yeah. I can't bring in bullets, mate.
So like sociopaths,
Yeah.
the same thing. For any member of the general public, anyone who's not like an academic researcher of it,
Yeah, okay.
they're the same thing. It depends on which kind of, I guess,
Someone called me a sociopath.
ideas. Really?
Yeah.
You know,
I think they were
sociopath.
they were just trying to pick up, like, be smart about trying to insult me, and I was like, I'm clearly not a sociopath.
You're not a sociopath.
That's what I told them.
I think you're a sociopath. But yeah, same thing. So if you think that somebody's environment kind of shapes exactly who they are, their society, they're shaped by like social structures and things like that, maybe, and then they become, they have psychopathic tendencies, you might use the label sociopath.
Okay.
If you subscribe to that belief, or if somebody believes, no, there's an inbuilt kind of biological thing in the brain that reacts to the environment, you might use psychopath. But it depends on what you've learned and what research you read. Basically. Okay. So there's no difference. They're the same thing as far as anyone needs to know.
Yeah.
That's my opinion as well.
Okay.
There'll be heaps of people that will disagree with me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's always fucking someone, isn't there?
Yeah.
You could say that fucking... There's people who think the world's flat. Let's reiterate. People who think the world is flat. You know what I mean? Earth is flat. It's just... There's always someone with a polar opposite opinion of you. Yeah, and so it's fucking... Who knows these days? You could be fucking... There's people tripping balls. And fucking,
It's so bizarre.
Yeah. I think we jumped... Oh, I think I wanted to chat about something. Lying. Why do people become compulsive liars? Do you have any thoughts on that? Or is that in your realm? Or
No.
Moving on.
No, I'm not sure. Genuinely not sure.
Like, lying is fun. I know it's probably a terrible thing to say, but I personally think, and this is where you can analyse me in your fucking melon, I think successful people in any fucking area are good liars. And I'm not saying lies as in like you're telling your wife that you've gone for a run so you can fuck the next door neighbour type lies. Right? People always think lies are terrible. I'm talking about those white lies that you say to a person to get a job. I love working. I'm a workaholic. I work too hard. I'm always here on time. I'm punctual. I work well with others. That type of shit. Whereas you probably have those tendencies and you can do them and they're not flat out lies, but you are lying to get your own way, essentially. And people lose their minds when you say, oh,
yeah,
lying? Oh my God.
I love it how people say, you're being manipulative, or so-and-so's manipulative and a liar. How much so?
Yeah.
Because we are all manipulative
Yeah.
liars. Every human being has lied and manipulates others. Not in a psychopathic way, but
maybe to get you out of trouble.
Yeah.
Maybe you got to lie to get yourself out of trouble. Someone's like, hey, can I come back to yours? And you're like, you're a fucking pretty sketchy dude. I feel like you're going to rob me. No, sorry, man. I'm going to my brother's house. Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so it's always really important to think of the grey areas in these things. Lying's good, lying's bad, It's like, okay, yeah, maybe for the most part lying is bad.
If you're lying just for the sake of lying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's psychopaths also, that's another one.
Yeah,
Psychopaths,
okay.
obviously. Yeah. Almost like they can't help it.
Yeah.
Lie
Just
to
comes
everything.
out. Well, I suppose if they want to get their own way, lying is a pretty good fucking way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just butter people up and be like, you're great at this, you should do this, and then like, maybe you should give me $100 and I'm not gonna buy heroin. Like something like that, I don't know.
You'd be the worst psychopath.
Just winking.
It's like, what are you doing? What's wrong with your eye?
No cocaine, you know what I mean? Let's talk about mental health. I know we've been talking about that the whole time, but I was just reading my heading. We've kind of gone through the depression side of the stuff pretty fucking decently already. You said if someone's depressed, they should obviously go to a GP. How about this? Working night shift. Does that have... That's pretty much role reversal for the average person. Working night shift, being a night owl. Is that linked in any of your fucking studies or anything with mental health?
I would guess that it was. I haven't read the studies. I think if you think about sleep, and a normal sleep routine and how important that is.
Yeah.
And also the fact that you do need sunlight as well, vitamin D, things like that. I would be shocked if it wasn't linked.
Yeah. What does the actual antidepressant medication do? I know it's probably in the title of it. What does the medication do? Does it just release something or take away something? Or?
Yeah, I won't talk too much about it because I would probably be talking a lot of shit.
Okay.
I'm not a psychiatrist, but I know a little bit about it. So when we talk about that first line lifestyle stuff, depression, the sleeping and eating and stuff, and then the next kind of phase would be seeing a therapist or somebody doing something like cognitive behaviour therapy, acceptance commitment therapy, whatever. It doesn't really matter. And that's the research. As long as you get on with your therapist and you like them and you have a kind of a trusting bond, you'll probably benefit. And then if that's not working, or if you are severely or moderately depressed, you might want to try an antidepressant, which you can get from your GP. And each to their own, but I really recommend doing both, doing an antidepressant and therapy if you have depression, if you have any or anxiety or any one of those kind of mental illnesses. Because the evidence is that they both work, but put them together and they work really well.
Yeah,
they work better.
We can understand what's going on, and
maybe
do you guys talk breakthroughs? Is that a thing?
Breakthroughs, yeah, for sure. Like, if somebody can't get out of bed and he's completely debilitated by their depression, they're probably not going to come to therapy. So I think the idea is that if they can have a biological depression, right, and they can get those neurochemicals up, and they can get out of bed, it might increase their mood a couple of points. Then they can do the therapy.
Yeah.
So that's how they kind of work together. I wouldn't recommend antidepressants, and again, not a medical doctor, so talk to your GP, psychiatrist, for somebody with low mood, because low mood is normal.
Okay.
For somebody with mild depression, perhaps you might like to try it, but I do not think the evidence is quite there for antidepressants.
Yeah.
It's great for severe depression.
Is depression hereditary?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It is. There's a link there. It doesn't necessarily mean you will be depressed if your parents are. But there's definitely a genetic link with most mental illnesses, including depression. But also your early life, if you think about that, if your mum or dad is depressed,
it becomes normal.
And you're trying to learn how to regulate your emotions, your brain development is going to be affected by that.
Yeah.
And certainly will have an effect on your later life as well. So antidepressants, there's a few different kinds. We won't go into them. I think the most popular ones are called SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors.
Sounds like a Russian submarine, but
yeah, it does, doesn't it? So I believe it works on, as the name would suggest, serotonin.
Yeah.
And stops the reuptake of that.
So serotonin is good.
Yeah, I think it's the mood regulatory neurotransmitter associated with happiness, I think. Like dopamine and stuff. That's grossly simplifying things, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, true.
So
it's like, it's as simple as this.
More serotonin is available by your brain when you take them.
Yeah,
And that might make you feel better if you have moderate to severe depression.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where my knowledge of that I'll publicly put on the internet stops.
Yeah. Do you, going back to the product of the environment sort of thing, how big of a thing is that just in general, do you believe? Like your thoughts on, you grow up, I'd use I don't know if it's an analogy, but if we're at a table like this and it's Christmas, you're with your family and everyone's smoking fucking meth or ice, and you're fucking, let's say 5, 6 years old, you'd be like, that's normal. You know what I mean? Doesn't everyone else do that? So, do you think that obviously impacts people, like your environment growing up and stuff has a big thing to do with your personality, your fucking mental health, all that type of stuff?
Massively. There's a debate in nature, biology versus nurture, your upbringing and your environment, that always gets talked about.
Yeah.
From what I've read and studied, and my opinion would be nurture, so your environment and how you grow up and everything in massive underlined, bold, capital letters has an impact on your mental health. Sure, your genetics plays a role, but I'll focus and be looking at that. If you think about a kid growing up in an environment where the parents, they might not even be beating them or abusing them, but they're not kind of there, they're kind of smoking meth, they're unavailable. If you go back to our near history, our evolution, if a kid's caregivers and parents are unavailable,
they're dead.
He's dead. He's dead. Not going to survive. Little baby in the wild is not going to survive.
We are terrible as babies.
The worst.
Like, we're just jellyfish. Need to be like fucking.
Yeah.
We're worse than jellyfish. Actually, they can get around and eat and do shit. We are literally just a blob that needs to be food given, changed. Even if we're not changed, we fucking get diseases and die. We're actually fucking terrible. We're actually born too early.
So vulnerable. Yeah, we come out and we just can't.
Because our melon's fucking. Isn't that the thing? Like, we wouldn't be able to be born if our melon was fully...
I've heard that.
Yeah, something like that. That's because our head's got that little fucking... I can't remember what the actual thing's called, but...
I know, our head's soft.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it wouldn't come out of it.
It kind of can bend, and then babies have these weird shaped heads when they come out.
Yeah.
When I was born, my mum told me, and my dad said, "What's wrong with him?" Because my head was like a cone. So it got so squished. How is that?
The fuck's wrong with this kid?
But if you imagine that, like a kid whose caregivers aren't there, unavailable, the terror, the core terror, they're not thinking because they can't really think, but their core brain terror
is high. Food and
I am going to die.
Yeah.
So it has a massive impact.
Yeah,
for sure.
For some reason, like always, like the crazy good comedians have always had like traumatic upbringings. For some strange reason.
Well, I mean.
It's that thing of like, if you get through this, you can fucking get through anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's that, like, it's very strange. It's like, some of the best ones are like, this happened, fucking... Yeah, you look at someone even like Mike Tyson, fucking... I think he could, and this might be totally wrong, but I'm pretty sure his mum was like fucking maybe a sex worker, and I don't think his dad was there or something like that. Like, crazy upbringing for the average person, so... I could be totally wrong. Don't come get me, Mike. But if you're listening to the podcast, cool, man. Give it a like and a share. But yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah, and the research that I do know is that severe emotional neglect predicts worse outcomes.
Really?
Right, than even sexual and physical abuse.
Is that, and that just fucks you for everything, even like your relationships with others, fucking...
It can be kind of remedied.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where the real kind of deeper sort of therapy comes into it, with someone who knows what they're doing and over a long time, usually a couple of years.
Okay.
You're not stuck like that.
Yeah.
And you can kind of rewire some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Very full-on, intense emotional work to do. And if it was really impacting your relationships in your life, right? You can't trust anyone.
Yeah.
You can't connect with anyone. You're just over it, right?
Yeah.
Then that's an option that you could do. You could do some therapy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a 10-sessioner.
Okay. That's a lot
longer. Yeah.
I'm just going to quickly pause here. Alright, sorry I fucked up what I was just doing. We're just talking about, what was it, nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
The impact that has later in life. Maybe you're a woman out there and your partner's showing some signs of this and that. You know, maybe that's the reason they don't open up to you. Maybe you're a fucking bitch. We don't know, Karen. Alright, now, I think we've addressed that, nature versus nurture. Nothing else to kind of chat about on that?
Could talk for hours about that, Taylor.
We'll move on. I want to go into addiction. Addiction is very interesting. I've had I suppose a couple of family members, pretty much we alcoholics. I'd say functioning alcoholics, which is weird because they went to work and stuff, but then, you know, in their own time they were fucking just drink themselves into a stupor and stuff, but then go to work, they were just in some crazy cycle of like, wow, that's impressive. You know, you could somehow go to work. Then a couple, like one of them did drink himself to death, which is absolutely terrible. So I wanted to like just chat to her about addiction and stuff. Like, are some people predisposed to addiction? Is that something that hereditary runs in the family? Mine alcoholic.
So to your first question, yeah, addiction's huge.
Yeah,
obviously massive.
In any capacity, though,
isn't it? Even alcohol, but you know, you hear a lot about meth and marijuana, even marijuana addiction. It's huge.
You can get addicted to anything, which is insane.
Yeah,
like people are like, oh, I'm addicted to drinking 20 coffees a day. I'm addicted to fucking eating fucking a hamburger a day. Like it can be anything. Like that's the thing that amazes me, that people can get addicted to anything.
I have an addiction.
Okay. Yes. And we're like, to stabbing fat people.
We all have, like a lot of people have addictions, but you know, caffeine. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Obviously, not the same thing
as
an illicit drug addiction. But headaches in the morning if I don't have them.
Okay.
3 or 4 coffees a day.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's socially acceptable. And I've kind of chosen that addiction, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
It is a socially acceptable addiction.
So I have cravings physically in my body, like with the headache, and feel a bit anxious if I haven't had my coffee.
Really?
It's. I mean, it would be a pretty uncomfortable week, I guess, if I wanted to go off it.
Yeah.
I could if I wanted to. I just don't want to.
Isn't that the sign of addiction?
For real.
Isn't that what addicts say?
Yeah.
I can easily get off it. Some of my mates, when they were, shout out to these guys who have done so well actually, from probably like 18 to, I don't know, late 20s, smoking darts, and got off it. The last 2-3 years, they're off the cigarettes, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Life changes, things like that, so like just different reasons, but they've got off the darts, which is a massive thing. My mum, apparently, like, she smoked when she was young, and then fell pregnant with my oldest brother, and it was just like, done. Smoking, and just kiboshed it, and it was just cold turkey, and she was like, yeah, it was really easy. But then you look at other people, like, I've tried for fucking 35 years.
You cannot quit.
Yeah, with everything, you know, patches, gum, fucking anything.
That goes the work. It's a big one.
Yeah.
It's extremely hard to get off it. A lot of people that I've worked with who have kicked other addictions, even heroin, to be honest, still smoke ciggies, and like, I hate this, and I wish I could quit ciggies.
Yeah.
They quit heroin.
Yeah.
So it says a lot, for sure.
Well, they're just bumping up the prices of cigarettes in Australia. So, like, I think a pack of cigarettes were like maybe 20. I'm not too sure. I've never smoked, but that's like, it seems to be about like $40-something, but like, it's something ridiculous.
Wild.
And that's really one of the ones that's knocking back a lot of people from cigarettes, I believe, in Australia, which is really good.
It's a good thing. They're obviously horrible for us.
Stop doing it to fucking alcohol.
So, with addiction, like, we'll expand on it, but say with the coffees, I got the physical withdrawal effects. You know, is it causing impairment in my life, across my occupation, across my relationships, across my health? No, it's not, and I'm being honest about that.
Okay.
So ask yourself, if you're using drugs and listening to this, ask yourself kind of that question.
Gambling.
Is it doing it? Even that kind of stuff. Is it causing an impact on my life? In any of those domains? And if it is, maybe it's time to start thinking about. That's the first step. Thinking about wanting to cut down. So after the physical withdrawals, you've got the psychological impact of substances. So my mild coffee stuff would be, coffee helps me get through the day at work. Coffee helps me think straight. I feel tired without my coffee. I need my coffee. That's a thought I'm having. I need my coffee.
Yeah.
That is not based in reality. I do not need a coffee. I would like a coffee. So we have thoughts that reinforce into cognitions that tend to stick around a lot. So, addiction, where would you want to start? There's a lot we could say about it. Where would you want to start?
Pretty much what causes an addiction. Like, why do people get addicted to things? Is it something to do they're happy and then all of a sudden they want to chase that fucking happiness? Is it to do with mental health? Why do addictions start?
So I think a lot of academics and people that research the area would be able to answer it a lot better than me. I guess my opinion would be that there's a genetic component. I'll say probably a small genetic component.
Yeah.
Of various areas in the brain. We won't go into too much, but impulsivity.
Yeah.
And things to do with delayed gratification.
Okay.
I want to feel good, I feel it now. And they do that.
Yeah.
And distress tolerance, and tolerance of uncomfortable emotions, and wanting to kind of not experience those anymore.
Yeah.
With addiction, a lot of the stuff that I've seen is people with trauma histories.
Okay.
So horrible things that have happened to them, or that thing we were talking about earlier, like they haven't got that connection with their caregivers. They've been somewhat emotionally neglected.
Yeah.
And then they turn to addiction later in their life. It's really hard to kind of cut it out, stop doing that. So there's a number of factors for sure. There's a little test actually that you can do at home.
For you?
With your kids to see if they're going to be an addict. No. But it actually predicts. Disclaimer is if you do this and you don't get a desired outcome, it doesn't mean too much. But there is a correlation with this little test you can do.
Okay.
So you have a kid like 5 or 6, put them in a room and you say, here's a jelly bean, for example. Now, if you eat this jelly bean now, that's okay, but you don't get this box of jelly beans.
Yeah.
If you wait until I come back, I'll give you this box of jelly beans, or a cupcake or whatever they like, and it's sitting on their desk.
Yeah.
And you see them looking, and they're like, oh man, and they just want to eat it so bad. Some of them just straight away eat it.
Yeah.
Right. And the ones that straight away eat it are more likely to have addictions in the future. More likely.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's definitely going to be an addict, right?
Yeah.
So it's that delayed gratification stuff. And I think, just from my experience, and there is research out there too, the trauma stuff is big.
Yeah.
Yeah. And neglect.
I got it. So if you're out there, just find a 5-year-old and just do some tests on them, apparently.
Family members, kind of thing.
Yeah. Kids on the bus, whatever floats your boat. Well, I suppose that answers my question. There's being links between addiction and mental health.
Huge links, yeah.
The thing that gets me is you can have an addiction to one thing. You know what I mean? Like, just because you use your mild coffee addiction, your little addiction, I'll say it, to coffee. But I reckon, and I'm not too sure, but if you started gambling and you had a flutter at the races or whatever, you wouldn't be like, I'm going to do that again. Like, it's funny.
Yeah.
Or would that happen? Is there a link between, like, actually, no, I got addicted to coffee, so, like, if I did this multiple times in, let's say, a month, that I could build onto an addiction or some sort of,
Yeah, well, I guess I've had a pretty privileged lifestyle. You know, like a white male growing up in Torquay, with, self-disclosed, no real traumas and some good caregivers, good parents. So I had some pretty good brain development, very lucky.
Yep.
I'd feel real good if I gambled and won. That'd be great. But then I'll be like, oh geez, I've got other stuff in my life, like I've got a mortgage, and other stuff I want to pay for. I've got to get to work too, limited time to do it. So that would stop me. So for example, if me and you inject heroin right now, so if I injected heroin at this table right now,
let's do it.
A lot of people have that, and look, you could do it once and be addicted, that's possible.
Yeah.
But unlikely, have the misconception that that'll happen. And then I was like, that felt really good, and I liked the heroin.
Yeah.
And I was like, geez, that was awesome. I'm going to get some more heroin. First of all, I'll have to talk to a few people that I don't know to get heroin. And then would I drive to Melbourne past the Ring of Steel to get some heroin? Or would I go to some other places in Geelong to get it? It would be kind of hard. And who would I go with? None of my mates use heroin. So I probably wouldn't go. So
you want more of a social drug? is what I'm getting.
What are we talking about here? But do you understand? You get my point?
Yeah, there's a lot of steps to get to that point.
Whereas if all my friends are injecting heroin,
and
it's just in my face all the time, I might use it every day for a week, and then by then, and a little bit more each time.
Yeah. And
I might think something like, oh, it's not too bad. It's not even that addictive. There's those thoughts again.
Yeah.
And then by then you've got a physical addiction as well as the sort of psychological stuff. And I think another massive thing is it's an avoidant coping mechanism for feeling shit, for feelings of worthlessness, defectiveness, numbness, that kind of stuff. It blocks it out sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a trauma history and every time you use drugs, you don't have to feel, it gives you some kind of relief, it's going to be a lot more appealing to try and avoid those emotions at all costs.
Yeah.
Avoid feeling like you're going to die, like you did as a kid because your parents never showed you that sort of connection.
Yeah.
That would be my take on it.
I suppose, like, before we talked about getting back into the routine of sleeping, exercising and eating healthy for your mental health, is there anything that, let's say that someone at home or whatever is listening to this podcast and they're like, oh, I'm feeling like I'm getting a little bit of an addiction to whatever it may be. Is there anything that they can do? And they're shy to chat to someone about it because maybe it is an addiction that they don't... It could be anything. It could be fucking jerking off 19 times a day. Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm jerking off 19 times a day. What do I do?
Do you want to have a chat? Switch this camera on.
Nah, keep it on.
How does it make you feel?
Yeah.
Actually, don't answer that.
You know. But what is something, and I don't know if it's in your repertoire or something that you... Addiction's a massive part that you do at your work and whatnot, but would you have any things for people to do about trying to, whatever their addiction may be? Is there any like little steps that, you know?
It's very broad, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Different for everybody, different for different types of drugs.
Sounds like people like a lot of things weaning themselves off, and by that I mean like, let's say you want to lose weight, you know, you got an addiction to eating food, whatever it may be. So they're like, okay, I'll start to eat, instead of 7 bars a day, I'll have 6.
6 and then cut down.
Yeah.
For sure. If you can do that, if you can start cutting down, distracting yourself, all the stuff we spoke about exercise and that, do it. But I would say even if you're shy, you don't want help with it, maybe you're ashamed, don't go it alone. A mate, a sponsor, sometimes 12-step programs work for people, some people hate them.
Do you put people on those type of programs?
If they want to go on those programs, it doesn't work for everyone. And some people love them. So
who does that type of stuff? So it's a counsellor of some description.
I think it's because we don't do it where I work. And there's meetings you can go to and talk to people. I think they're more like peer, like the recovered people that have been addicts.
Mentors.
And they can do that. There's a few, I won't say any names. After this, I know they would be happy with me speaking to you about it personally, for you to maybe even interview on this podcast. But we won't say any names on here yet. You haven't spoken to them.
Yep.
But try not to go it alone. It's a really complicated beast, addiction.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Just stop using it, and family members just stop using. I don't get it. You know.
Yeah.
It's hard. We cannot comprehend how hard it is.
Well, if people are like I said, normal people, but people haven't had any problems being when they were younger and stuff in their life, with the law and stuff, and they get an addiction and they are robbing family members. Once they've robbed their family members and can't get into their house or taking all the stuff that they're going to sell, and then they're robbing, service stations, fucking this, that, whatever. That's insane. To be from, I'm doing it purely to support my habit and I'm committing crimes. You got to remember that's next level shit. 2
weeks was the most severe one I saw. Was relatively functioning okay. Did have a horrific trauma history, but was functioning okay. Started doing, I think it was meth. He was smoking ice, and it took 2 weeks, or was it 3 weeks? Something really short, and then he was single, lost his family, kicked out of the house, had armed robbery charges, drug trafficking charges, going to jail. Like it was the most rapid, quick thing I've ever seen in life. That's an outlier, but wow. Yeah. But that happens.
And that can happen to some people.
It can, and it happens a lot over years.
Yeah.
Or months. It's a really nasty thing. You've got the psychological addiction too to battle with your therapist or with your friends or just in yourself. Sometimes you need to take the physical side out of things. So you might have to sign up for a detox for a couple of weeks and then a rehab. something like that. I get the pull of not wanting to tell someone, but really recommend it. Tackling something like addiction alone, it's going to be tough.
And there's just so many out there. They can be the weirdest things.
Yeah.
Like you watch those TV shows on TCL or whatever, TLC or whatever the fuck they are, and I would just be like, I'm addicted to eating potatoes. I'm addicted to drinking petrol, or like it's something.
My weird addiction.
Yeah, and you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's so bizarre.
Yeah.
It's hard to comprehend when you haven't got the brain of the other person.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to judge. A lot of people judge people. Obviously, substance. You're just a bloody druggie or stuff like that. You hear that all the time. We're not that far off people that have got addicted to substances and gone to prison.
Mm-hmm.
We're a couple of shit events in our childhood and a few bad decisions away from being blacklisted by society.
Yeah.
Basically, you're a prisoner, you're not getting a job anymore, you're done.
Yeah.
So I think people do it to some extent. They get off their high horses.
Yeah.
Because people are struggling. Some of them maybe assholes.
Yeah.
Right? But the majority of these people are really struggling and they need compassion. They also need boundaries. If they're robbing from family members and things like that.
Yeah.
You can't be accepting that to happen.
So, yeah, well, I suppose I probably just jumped on you then. But say that you suspect someone in your family or friends or someone is using. Like I'm saying, like, you know, the people listening, even for myself.
Yeah.
What would you suggest? You know, and would you suggest confronting that person? Like, in what sort of manner? Like, you're suspecting things have gone missing. You've had, you know, $50, $100 taken out of your wallet. People have told you that fucking blah blah blah. Was smoking meth the other weekend at a party. How would you?
Like a family member.
Yeah, or a close friend or something.
Oh, it's super tough, isn't it, when that gets involved? You can talk to random people about their addictions and everything relatively easily.
Because that's like a lot of people, I guess, or not a point like this, a lot of people listening to this. But, you know, like, some people want to know, like, what way would you go about chatting to potentially a friend, a close friend that, you know, it's gone off the rails a bit, started to hang around with the wrong people, and then all of a sudden, like, is there anything that you could recommend for that?
If they're a close friend or family member, being there for them and saying, okay, how are you going?
Yeah.
First of all, without the addiction side of things, their mental health.
Yeah.
How's it going for you? They might say they're fine. And just keeping an eye on them and checking in regularly.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't want the help, the more you kind of impose yourself, they might push away more.
Yeah, that's
if
the
they're
hard thing.
stealing off you and stuff and you know it, I would be distancing and putting boundaries in.
Yeah.
We don't have to martyr ourselves for that. And I'd be, if it's safe to do so, confronting them about it in a really non-angry way. So you're going to have to plan. I would recommend writing a script.
Okay.
Almost. And planning that. Because you will get angry and then they will get angry. And then you'll both be angry and then it's not going to accomplish anything. No one's taking stuff in. To calmly have that discussion, cannot be stealing from me.
Yeah.
What didn't steal from you? You have to be pretty sure.
Yeah.
And
I got you on video, motherfucker.
Yeah. It's like, look, I really care about you, but this is not on.
Yeah. Do interventions work in your? Have you ever? Is that a thing that you guys do?
We do family work all the time, and we have family members come in. They work fantastic when they want to be there.
Okay.
I wouldn't be dragging anybody in for an intervention who was absolutely opposed, springing on them, that kind of stuff.
Hey, motherfucker. We got your mum, your grandma, and your fucking baby mama here.
Yeah.
They call you a piece of shit.
So, not a fan of interventions, but family work, big time.
Yeah.
If there's a shred of, I guess, personal responsibility or they want to go, great. But if they're completely against it, the options are limited. Really.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
People don't want to hear shit, they don't want to hear it.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I assume someone's trying to tell me something in my life and I was like, nah, I'll be fine. I'll grow a beard, it'll be fine. I think we have covered most of the things that I wanted to cover today. There's literally a bazillion things that we could go through and we could talk for hours. Hopefully I get you back on the show at some stage and we can talk about anything from different angles and whatever comes up.
Yeah, I'll be happy to come back for sure, Tate. I do have to clarify one other thing before we stop. Because we mentioned psychopaths and we mentioned psychotic people.
Yep.
And I wanted to
There's a big difference.
make sure people understand there's a massive difference between those two groups of people. The psychosis and the psychotic people are the ones that might be developing schizophrenia. They're the ones that might be hearing the voices and having trouble thinking and need some help from mental health services.
Yeah.
Completely different to psychopaths, who are the ones that don't have really empathy for others, the shallow expression of emotions, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Disregard for society's rules and laws, manipulative. Not even related.
Yeah.
So
Pretty.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, unfortunately, they are. And I would have. It seems to be. I don't know if it's a pejorative term or something like that for psycho. Just label everyone as a psycho that's not normal.
Yeah.
You can see someone play footy, and you're like, he's a psycho.
Absolutely psycho. Yeah.
Or someone at the pub's fighting, he's a psycho. Fucking, your missus is yelling at you, she's a psycho. But realistically, it can be totally different. But it's just, we just chuck labels on it because it's a lot easier to be like, blah, blah, blah.
Like if you hear somebody's psychotic, you're like, oh my god, they're gonna,
I wouldn't even, before this I would probably, like, it sounds like psychotic that's very, they don't know, they're not fully in charge of what's going on, is that correct?
Yeah, terrified of the government stealing their organs or other delusions, seeing stuff, hearing stuff, to a severe degree. They're psychotic and they might need an inpatient admission and certainly probably need some medication.
Yeah. So like cameras in the house and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Just to clarify again, the lifeline number is 13 11 14 and their motto is want to talk about it for you people. If you are any type of fucking not feeling the best, jump on it. I assume it's fucking free. It's there to help. Obviously that's for Australia. I think Samaritans is the one in the UK, and for Canada you can't just happy all the time, so you're fine.
With your superior healthcare.
Yeah. I'm sure you're probably all psychologists and awesome. Before we go, just to reiterate, if someone is feeling unwell, not the best, they're down, that they should go to a GP, and the GP can recommend the 10 free bulk pills.
Oh, you can ask for them.
Yeah.
Just say, I want a mental health care plan.
And then okay.
And they'll go, yeah, all right. And then you would call up whoever the GP recommends, or you can Google it, go on the Australian Psychological Society website, the APS has a list of people, and you make an appointment, go with your plan, and go from there. You don't have to have a diagnosed mental illness.
Yes.
Just bloody... COVID times are hard, right?
Yeah.
So even if you need to debrief, if you need to kind of do some upskilling with your self-care, I really would recommend it. That's not the area I work in now.
Yeah.
Kind of more the psychotic people. But you certainly don't need to be that level to access supports in Australia anyway.
Yeah.
So couldn't recommend it highly enough.
Is that for people with addiction as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And there's other programs too your GP can refer you to, including detox. Stuff like that. They're kind of the gatekeepers, your GPs.
Okay. So they kind of send you which direction that your symptoms align to, and they go best bets. Yeah,
and if you can get a good regular GP, they're worth their weight in gold, really. That would be another recommendation. But any GP can give you a plan.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, that is episode 8 of Tait Talks podcast. Thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you so much for letting me into your home and filming this podcast today, or recording I should say. If you've got any of those things that we've discussed, mental illness, addiction, anything like that, there is a lot of help out there. And as a fucking fuckwit dude who has probably been, earlier in my 20s, being the person who has been like, just suck it up, you fucking, you're weak or whatever, because I was a fuckwit. Looking back on it now, absolutely terrible. It's the wrong thing to do. And you shouldn't think like that, because I don't know if we discussed this, but you don't know what people are going through, obviously, and you can't, just because they're not showing signs of physical pain, it doesn't mean they're not in pain.
Yeah, I guess the final thing too would be a way to get people to think that way would be to think people that want to kill themselves or cut themselves, imagine personally how badly you'd have to feel inside to want to cut on your skin or to want to kill yourself. Imagine how bad you'd have to feel. And that's where they're at, right there for them.
Which is everything points towards self-preservation in your life. You know, we're going to try and breathe no matter what. We'll dunk our best mate, our mum, underwater so we can survive. It's just what we do. We want to survive at all costs. If you're willing to be the one to fucking turn it off, there is something wrong.
And they'll be feeling so horrible that we couldn't probably comprehend it.
Yeah.
Some people might be able to, but you know, if you're fortunate enough to think, oh, geez, suck it up,
Yeah.
then you don't comprehend it and you don't understand.
Yeah. And we are obviously getting better, I think, at that. It's taken obviously years and years and years, but we're finally going like, this is a fucking issue, and they're pumping in. I think it was like $1 billion into mental health stuff while COVID was on.
Yeah.
So in Australia anyway, so it's obviously a big deal. And if you're out there with bad thoughts, low mood, as you said, or anything, there's people out there to help you. It's as easy as a click on your computer or a phone call or going into a bulk bill GP and they'll set up everything for you.
Talk to your friends, get your mental health care plans, people.
Yeah.
Check in.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Sam. We are done.
Thanks, Tait.
Hopefully next week, another episode. Bam. And that's it.
No.
I just wanted to fucking reiterate that, you know, help is out there, motherfuckers.
Yeah.